live. Pull up the stream stuff so we can kind of get rolling. And hello, Tisha, nice to see you. So hello, everybody. I am Permanent DM, or Gary. I am the creator of the game All My Sty. And this is a short series where I'm talking with the icons from the Campaign 5 playtest, where we went over a pretty extended time, over 250 sessions of playtesting the game, which is going to be coming out in full next year, and the quick start with the starter 6 classes and a adventure and everything built into it is going to be coming out this summer. And when people played in the playtest, if you made it to level 10, if you're the first person to make it to level 10 on a character, you got to become the iconic character for that class. So if you open up the rulebook and you flip to, for example, today, Warlord, you will see the Warlord that is here. You'll see the character that is up here. This is Chief. And Chief was piloted by Tisha. And that happened for each of the classes where we had to make it to level 10. And I'll be talking to each of them in short order. So we talked with Harland, the iconic wizard, and we talked with Giles, the iconic fighter. Today we're going to be talking to Chief, the iconic wizard, or sorry, the iconic warlord, and warlord being one of the kind of core support classes, or the core leadership classes in the game. So before we get into diving into the warlord itself and experience of the playtest, I'm going to pass it over to Tisha. So Tisha, what is your experience before you got started playing All My Sty with tabletop or with gaming in general? What sort of is your gaming background?
Yeah, let's see. Well, tabletop gaming background next to zero, unless you count like Monopoly or something like that. I had never really played D&D before until, my sister was going through a bit of a rough patch trying to find some friends, and there was a local meetup group at a local bar here, and they were doing some tabletop games there and open to the public to join, and I was like, okay, let me just take my sister there and see if she'll find friends there or something to kind of help her make some friendships and stuff. So we brought her there, went there, and we ended up having a good time, but my sister is very flaky, so she kind of got every excuse in the world not to go after a bit, and I just kept coming every week, and eventually I heard about Gary's game for, at the time, called Dice Mice, and I joined the playtest for it, and that was basically my first D&D adjacent game. I played a couple at the D&D meetup, but only once or twice for different systems. But yeah, Dice Mice is probably the most, now All My Sty is the most experience I've had with any kind of tabletop RPG.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun because Harlan is in the same sort of position where one of his big first experiences was in All My Sty, and then he went on and kind of spun off and played in some other games. And I think you're in a similar position too, right? You kind of started with All My Sty, at least ostensibly for your sister, but you've played other stuff as well. I know you're actually in a game with, I think, at least two of the other icons, where you're playing a Lancer game, right?
Yes, three of them. I've played with the iconic fighter, barbarian, and brawler.
Dakota's in
Lancer.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's cool.
And that started up towards the end of the playtest campaign. So now I'm kind of in the world now. So we're gonna continue playing, I guess, a little bit as our supplement, but until the next campaign for All My Sty.
Yeah, and I know you were kind of pulled in initially to be here for your sister. Your sister got to play a couple of games, like 2-3 games, I think, because she did actually play some All My Sty.
Yes, she absolutely did. She played, I believe about like maybe 3 sessions, three or 4 sessions. A couple at the bar we were going to, and then I think she might have done one at your house. I can't remember. Um, but yeah, she's played a couple. She played a couple sessions, and she had fun. It's just she can really focus in on certain things, and once her attention is taken off, like on something else, she completely loses interest in everything else. It's it's the ADHD. So
Yes, the letters that describe us all, sometimes even more than TTRPG.
there you go.
So glad to have you. I'm really happy you decided to give the game a try. We are actually really lucky here. We're in Kentucky, and our local gaming community is actually not only pretty vibrant, but it's not just D&D. I know there's a lot of places, and I've heard from a lot of people that are saying, oh, I'd really like to play other things, but my local community does D&D exclusively. That's really not the case here. So for those that don't know, we play at a place called the Awry Brewing Company, and when we go and play at Awry, there's a bunch of tables that run every Wednesday night, and I would say the idea that half of the tables are D&D would be a weird aberration. I don't think I've ever been there in a night where half the tables or more were D&D. I don't know if that's your experience too, Tisha, but I feel like the idea that D&D is the main thing that gets run has not been a thing pretty much for the past couple of years at Awry.
No, D&D is always at least one table, but it is definitely not the 50% of the games are D&D. It's just like there's the token D&D table.
Yeah, it's the sort of token D&D table too.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll go a little bit into then Chief. So tell us about who is Chief. What is their thing? You can see the iconic character over here. And what is your sort of experience playing as the Warlord in the campaign?
Yeah. I'll say it started off a little different because Chief did not start off as Chief. Honestly, I'm trying to remember if he even had a name in the beginning. When I first started playing All My Sty, it was very, very early on. We learned, okay, don't get attached to your characters too much, because as the name goes, all my stew die, and I had a lot of them die. So my house was based in a region called Waste Watch, and one of the stats that the main stat for it is dexterity. So I was constantly rolling up rogues, and a lot of them died. So I kind of got a little tired of even putting any kind of effort into coming up with a backstory for my characters, unless they made it past a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
And Chief was my first one that had ever made it to the first, next level tier from, level 1 through 4. 1 through 3 is like, oh, baby, you're squishy. You are probably not going to make it if most of the time. But he was the one that made it to 4, which is heroic.
Yeah, heroic.
Yeah, he was my first heroic mouse. So he got the name Chief. I think probably because I was watching football with my dad, and the Chiefs were winning a lot that year or something. But and it felt fitting for a warlord. But yeah, I as it started going, we started formulating more of his character, his skills that he could really do well in because of his high charisma was, diplomacy and bluff. So I really leaned into that. So it made him more of a very, very much like he wants to really prove himself, a young leader type that really wants to prove himself. He's got a very low wisdom stat and intelligence. So his ideas might not always make sense, but for some reason people just like him, and so they go with it, and it kind of just works for him. So
he could definitely front somebody else.
Go with his character.
Yeah, he can front somebody else's ideas really, really well. He just needs, someone to give him the little teleprompting cards of this is what you're supposed to say.
Exactly.
So one thing I find interesting, right? You played several rogues, a succession of rogues. I think from if my memory serves, you had four rogues. You know, three died, and then one was just the perpetual backup character. Um, when you kind of came into being a more supportive role, right? The idea of the leadership role, did that feel like something that was normal for you? Is that, I know you don't have a lot of tabletop experience prior to All My Sty, but like, do you tend to like the idea of being the support, of being the like sort of force multiplier for other people, or do you typically, you know, not play the supporting archetype?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's an interesting question because, like, yeah, I don't play a lot of TTRPGs, and most video games they put you into the you're the main character kind of thing there. But also, like, a lot of video games I play are like micromanagement simulation games where I just play God. So it's a completely different perspective there. But I do think I do like the idea of like, trying to help everything, organize everything, and make sure everything's in its place so that the everything can function like a well-oiled machine and we can be productive. Any kind of tycoon game I'm playing, that's the goal, is just to make sure we're profitable and everybody's doing their job. But luckily in a video game without the overhead of our corporate overlords. So I think there's a little bit of that too that kind of influenced my, oh, okay, I like being the support here. I like enabling people to pun intended, enabling people to do better at what they're already really good at. And so that was really helpful, especially after playing as Rogue and realizing, like, I don't think I'm aggressive enough for the front line, and especially with Rogue where, most of the time you're playing without a shield, so you do get hit, you're very much a glass cannon. You get hit, it's over. And it was kind of rough going through that. Whereas like support class, the whole point is like I'm not really trying to get in the fire. I'm trying to help everyone else who is in the fire to live through that fire and hit harder so that we get hit less.
So you kind of alluded to it a little bit, I think, there when you said no pun intended. But for those that don't know the Warlord in All My Sty, what would you think are sort of your like signature abilities? What are you doing? We know that you're not in combat, right? You're going to be the face. You're going to be talking to people, using your heavy charisma. But like, are there any abilities or skills that you felt were like pretty core to your experience as chief? I guess two separate questions, right? Like, what are your abilities? What are you doing to enable other people? And then after we go over that, we'll go over like, what are your skills? Because I know your skills were very narrowly focused as the Warlord, but very important. So what sort of abilities do you have starting there?
Yes, you're not exactly spoiled for choice with skill points when you have the Warlord class. You don't get a lot of points, which are the way you can allocate how good you are at certain skills. So very much like from the beginning, I was like, he's just going to have to be really good at like one or two things because there are not there's not a lot of points to spare. And being charisma, diplomacy, they kind of go a bit hand in hand. So we went with that, and then as we were playing, we realized how important diplomacy is. So that became very much one of his core skills is diplomacy. So he was very much the face of the group, the one who talks, the one who gets us out of any kind of faux pas. Anytime someone says something that may have slightly pissed off someone we didn't want to piss off or whatever. So that became very much a important skill for him. And the other one was bluff, which we use for helping us sneak around things or whatever. I like to look at it as him finding, he's very good at covering his tracks or making people just look the other way. He's just something about that guy. So those were his two core skills, I would say, for him. And especially since he's not very intelligent, so I could not spec him in history very much. The other, when he's in combat, though, like you said, he's not exactly going to be the one hitting. In fact, the goal is for him to never have to wield a weapon. And in fact, I think he only pulled out his sword maybe once. And I feel like, ironically enough, he rolled a natural one on that attack too, which is just very fitting. So when we're in combat, one of the Warlord abilities, which I would say is probably the most, you know, what do you call it? I guess the the Warlord ability. If you're going to call any ability, think of any ability for a Warlord, it's Enabler, which is, as an action, you allow an ally adjacent to you to take the attack action with a bonus to attack and damage rolls equal to your leadership. So I give up my action to allow someone else to hit. And of course, I mean, my Warlord is not pulling his sword out. That's not his job. But the fighter, the barbarian, the brawler, oh, absolutely.
Much better weapons.
They are much more adept at that. So I would like them to take that action, please. And as a bonus for doing my job for me, you can have some of my leadership points to add on to whatever hit you, whatever attack roll you're doing, and whatever damage you do. So, and Warlords get I believe the highest leadership in the game. So it'll add a substantial amount of damage, and it'll make it where your attack rolls. Honestly, it's not even a question of do you hit; it's more of a do you crit kind of situation. So that is where we ended up at towards the end there. I'd say that is the biggest one, but I am a fan of the watch out as well, where it gives you a free reroll for any defensive saving throw. You can kind of, as a reaction, tell someone like, "Whoa, try that again." A little rewind.
Yeah, and we talk about these things a little bit with not only how the character was, how the class was in the game, but we also talk a little bit about how the class changes. So, we alluded to it a little bit earlier in the stream that, with the campaign 5, the other playtest is over. Campaign 6 is going to be starting this summer, and sort of we'll get to see the evolution, right? The campaign 5 was really a playtest campaign. It was something that the game was completely usable and playable, but in campaign 5, I was taking copious notes. I was trying to make sure that things worked, and it was really my first chance to sort of see at scale how this game plays at the table. I'd played several times where we did one shots or we did like short little sections of campaigns, but usually with the same players, very focused playtest. Whereas campaign 5 as a West Marches thing that actually was West Marches, so we got to have over 100 players. It was a very different experience, and when we stopped, I very much feel like we could still be playing now if I didn't force us to to say no, I have to make a break at some point. It has to be here. So I wanted to say a little bit about sort of the Warlord. When I was looking over the classes for the updates coming, the Warlord at low levels doesn't really have a lot of changes. They are very, very similar for campaign 6 than they were for campaign 5. One of the things that I thought was interesting and very sort of indicative of the way the class works is every class at level 1, they get something basic. They get something that just sort of gives you an introduction to feeling for the class. Your fighter has the idea that they are heavily armored, so they get some damage resistance. The Guardian gets a similar thing, but they also get a shield speciality that kind of even leans them further into being sort of a combat specialist. So every class gets some little things. One of the things that I think is interesting is when I was looking through all the intro abilities, there's only 2 classes and only one of the base classes whose intro ability does nothing on their own. So like the Warlord as a class, their starting ability, which Tisha mentioned, watch out, they can't use it on themselves. So they have to enable one of their allies. They have to help one of their allies out. And the other class, the Slayer, has the same idea, but their ability is when other people help them. So there's sort of 2 classes that are the 2 sides to the coin. as far as, hey, we need to work together. This teamwork is the core of the gameplay. Also, good morning, Node, and good morning to those who are able to pop into the chat. Glad to see people hopping in. If people have questions or comments about stuff, I know, Node, you played mostly in the online group. I don't know if you played with the other barbarian, Tisha, or the person who became our iconic revenant.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But yeah, if anyone has any questions for her, feel free to shoot them into chat. I will say that while the low level stuff hasn't really changed, the high level stuff did change quite a bit. So a lot of the high level pieces for Warlord are going to be very much leaning into trying to give you stuff to do with a bigger group. And having things that scale off of the number of retainers, being able to sort of massage the numbers if you have an especially large party. Because in All My Sty, you have not only your core group, the people that are playing, but they also get to bring retainers with them. And the one change for low-level play for Warlord is their level 1 ability, the sort of second piece of their level 1 ability, means that they're the only class that can bring in a retainer with them on adventure at level 1. So they can get a little extra boost that kind of, hey, the Warlord does not go alone to wherever they go. I don't know if that sounds fun to you, Tisha, or if you have any thoughts. Because I know when you...
I'm very curious, the expansion of that. I don't think we got like super into retainer play with the Warlord until much later in the playtest. And I think it was just like a bit of confusion around like how it worked, like the rules around it, especially since they kind of changed this and went since the playtest. But I think like the last version of the rules that I had seen towards the end, there was a bit of confusion around what the retainers could do versus what they couldn't do. If I had to treat them as if they were taking like Chiefs action or something like that, or something. Yeah. So I'm very curious, like what the rules look like with retainers moving forward, because it is very interesting to be able to juggle that and have these extra little minions, I guess. I mean, they're your little brothers and sisters, but like, let's be real, they're not doing much.
Yeah.
But to see like what you can get from them, the Warlord can get more from them than others, and I'm very curious to see where that goes.
Yeah, one other thing that you said earlier is like, when you're looking at your skills, you've got your bluff to kind of help cover your tracks and to distract and things like that, and you also have, you feel diplomacy was always pretty core. I know for a lot of people who would be listening, they might think of diplomacy exclusively as talking well, right? As just being the good face, right? There's a lot of overlap between I have high charisma and I have high diplomacy, where it's basically just another talking skill. But that's not all diplomacy does in All My Sty. What is your experience with so what else does diplomacy do is going to be my question for you. And then how did that sort of change the idea? Because I think this is something that might make it to where when you play in other games, since your first experience with diplomacy is with All My Sty, you might feel like you're going into other games with a different perspective on what diplomacy might do.
Oh yeah. I had to learn that the next time I went to Arai after playing All My Sty and played in like one of the D&D 5e, and I was like, oh, okay, diplomacy is nowhere near what I thought it was. What I thought it was in general. It's very different in All My Sty. I would argue it got to a point where you don't go out on an adventure without someone at the very least trained in diplomacy, but you really should be going out with an expert diplomat every single time. Because one of the main abilities for diplomacy is you understand every, like, I don't know about every language. I think that's at what, expert.
The more training you have in diplomacy, the more languages you get, the more cultures you understand.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. So trained, you understand like I think the four most common languages, and then yeah, expert it starts expanding to more languages you understand or whatever. But we found yeah, when you run into creatures out in the wild because you're adventuring and you're gonna go to other places and run into things you weren't expecting. It is so much easier to talk to them when you have someone with at least trained diplomacy, because otherwise you have to play this game of just I guess sign language almost. But like neither of you know sign language very well, so it became very apparent when like you didn't understand the language of who you were talking to, and how like it made it to where that was the whole adventure at that point was just talking to them, trying to figure out what they're trying to say. Whereas if you had like an expert diplomat or something, you just immediately got it and you can get straight to the point. So it makes such a difference with that. It was kind of like a similar thing with history. If you had, I think, is it trained history where you can read every language or read the four core, and then expert you can read more than the four core languages, right? Okay, yeah. So it's kind of like that. But Chief's too dumb to be really good at history, so he luckily had his partner in crime, the iconic Bard, who was very good at history, and she could read everything for him. She could read for him. He didn't take time to learn to read. So I'd say that's probably the main thing with diplomacy. And then, of course, as we got further on into the game and we were starting to do bigger missions and stuff and bring home more rare resources for the counties, expert diplomacy was very helpful because it would increase how much of a reward you would get from those resources. I like to call it, Chief's his wheeling, his dealing. He knows how to just get a little bit more out of people than what it probably is actually worth. And so it would bump you up a tier. People found that very crucial. So I think, yeah, towards the end, it was like almost mandatory to the point where people wanted to like rent Chief to go on adventures with them because they needed an expert diplomat at the very least, if not someone with really high diplomacy.
Also, hello, Renan. Good to see you being able to join by. And I was gonna say something about that. This is one of the pieces of West March's play and like community play that I think is really unique and also really fun. It kind of more harkens back to some of the ways that it feels to play an MMO rather than a tabletop game, in certain like sort of the good aspects of that, where if you're playing in an MMO and you're playing, say you've got a character that has you're playing a healer, you're playing a tanking character, and someone's like, hey, we really need somebody to come heal these dungeons or someone to come tank these dungeons. You have this sort of bargaining built into the social structure, right? Where it's like, oh man, we feel like, could we get a random tank or random healer from the dungeon system? Could we find one in trade chat? Yeah, I mean, maybe, but we don't want to do that. Can we please have a guild tank or a guild healer come and do this thing? And then you get this thing of like, oh, well, if I come tank that thing for you, then I need you to come, tank for my low level character, or, you need to come do like, some PvP with me or whatever. There's this back and forth. And I think, more than maybe some of the other characters, the Warlord had that with one, just being the leadership character. I think ended up having a little bit of people sort of fighting over them, but also that idea of expert diplomacy, right? Where having a little bit of a force multiplier, not only in your abilities, but in the rewards that you get from going out on adventure, meant that people wanted to try to shuffle things around. I remember we had an incident where the online group tried to convince you to go to the market for them because they had used all of their diplomats. I don't remember if you actually went for them or if you did allow Chief to be rented out for that. Was that a thing, or did you
I remember that. Yeah, I think they had a different adventure day that went on that was occurring on the same day, and they brought every high diplomat that they had to that mission. And I think they forgot that the market also fell on that same day. And like the market is like, if there's any adventure where it's mandatory to have an expert diplomat, it would be the market. And so yeah, they were asking people from the in-person group like, anyone have a high level diplomat? We know chief, but it couldn't be chief because they knew if anybody's going to the market, chief's going to the market. Like he would never miss market day. So chief had already went, but I think I had another character in my house that also was an expert diplomat, and they were like, well, can we borrow him? And I was like, I guess. I don't think we ended up doing that. I think they ended up finding somebody. But yeah, it became like that was a bit of a situation for a couple days of like, crap. Anybody have a high level diplomat or what do you call it?
An expert. Yeah. Yeah, and that ended up being that was a sort of again a fun sort of unique thing for organized play or having West Marches or a mega game or anything like that, where there is this sort of bargaining back and forth. Node is saying in chat that they didn't always have diplomats along, but when they wanted to go and talk to very specific people, they felt like, oh, we really have to bring the diplomats out to go and talk to the Formians. And that is true. They did that, although I think a lot of times their expert diplomat was... I want to say they had a sorcerer and the demiurge. But the more that I think about it, maybe there was an exemplar. I don't remember what your all's diplomat was when you went out to go do things. Because again, these groups, they're very sort of nebulous. You don't necessarily sort of attach yourselves to any one particular group, although you did have a partner in crime. Tell me a little bit about my wife. Tell me about Chief's person that they were attached to, and kind of some of the ways that ended up coming up in gameplay.
That was hilarious. I swear to God, we were. There's another in the in-person group. There's another player in there, which hopefully you'll get to meet her soon. She played the iconic Bard. So her Bard, actually, I think is with us from the very beginning. I believe she was one of her first mice that she rolled up. So her name's Emmy, and she was on a lot of the adventures because the Bard is just, I mean, I say like she's freaking broken. I mean, the way it's like, we don't ever want to go on like any kind of combat or without her. Honestly, we don't want to go on any adventure without her because she is just so... It makes things so much easier because of the amount of skills the bard can bring, and the support they bring with their bardic song is just, I mean, it's a game changer. It completely changes how you approach any kind of combat. It changes how you change your party structure, everything. So anytime Emmy was along, it was, so that's who I was referring to when I was like, Chief's kind of dumb. He does not have any world points in history, even though that is a skill that Warlords can spec into and probably should for some of the abilities it comes with. But he didn't mind so much because Emmy had history. And they would go on adventures a lot together because they really do... like they really complement each other a lot, the way their skills work, and as well as like being the two, I in my opinion, the two strongest support classes. So when they would come along together, I mean, I feel like me and I'll say the iconic Bard's name is Corinne. The player for the iconic Bard's name is Corinne. Me and Corinne would make jokes about like they probably got pretty close because they're always in, playing the support roles and stuff, and they always constantly have to like translate for each other because maybe she didn't understand what they were saying, but she can read it, and he can't read, but she can translate it for him. So we've always joked about that. But then we had learned about the Battleborn system probably like mid to late in the playtest or whatever. Because I never knew anything about it. I have no experience with TTRPGs. And I didn't even know that was a thing we could do in the game. So apparently you can, yeah, just have kids, and especially if you have them while in out on an adventure in battle, you can have battleborn children. And we were like, how do we make this thing real? Okay, we've been playing around with it for a while. Where I like, I feel like she probably was had a crush on him, but he's too much of a workaholic to ever like act on it. Um, and I don't know what Emmy thinks, but I'm just throwing it out there. She's like, no, Emmy would love that. I'm like, oh, perfect.
Wonderful.
So we shipped our characters very much, and yes, there was love in the count in the Waste Watch particularly. I believe Emmy was Waste Watch.
Yep.
So
Actually,
there was love in the counties.
I think if memory serves, Emmy is actually from the Warrens because it came up.
Warrens, that's right.
It came up like one time. Like one time, she made an attack roll, and it was like, "Hang on, this is the one time this will come up." So that where your character is from, they get a once per adventure reroll for something associated with that stat. So the Warrens is the strength region or the strength tied region, so they get a reroll for an attack or a strength based skill. And I think that came up exactly once in the whole campaign.
Because she didn't have she wasn't from somewhere that like really was helpful for a lot of the roles that she would make, because that was one thing that was common with a lot of with our characters. It's like, God, we can never use our county our origin county reroll because they don't really complement what we do a lot. So Chief being from Waste Watch is a dexterity reroll where he's not making a lot of dexterity checks.
Hopefully
he would want charisma rerolls. So he would want to be from which one is that? Outpost?
Yep.
Yeah. So he would want to be from there. And so it was a similar thing with Emmy, where it's like she's not making a lot of attack rolls, because I believe Warren's is like mostly just attack reroll, and she's like, if I'm attacking, something went very wrong. So I think we both had that kind of similar thing going too.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit, but if All Mice Die is your first experience with RPGs, you might not be aware of just how weird of a thing the Battleborn system is. That is not a standard gameplay thing in a lot of other games. It's definitely not a part of D&D for how to officially ship your characters and what the mechanisms are for it. But the characters, so the idea of All Mice Die is that you are playing as field mice. And as we talked about earlier, like you kind of don't want to get attached to any particular mouse, especially at low levels, because, they have lots of mice for a reason, because some of them will survive, but many of them do not. And the idea of Battleborn does have a pretty significant impact, because while the players had been around people that talked about being Battleborn before, I don't think any of the players for a good chunk of the campaign realized that there was a mechanism behind being Battleborn. The idea of some of the NPC characters, would talk about this, and they said specifically that the Godfrey sisters, like Serena, was saying that she was Battleborn was sort of just a social context thing, but there is a mechanism, there's a mechanical impact for if you have, because again, you're playing noble families, noble houses. If you have an arranged marriage, right? If you have this idea of we're going to ship these two characters, we're going to make this somewhat official, then you can sort of start a clock, start a timer for, hey, they've done the deed, the kids are on the way, and if they can line it up to where they go on an adventure in that window where the kids are going to be born. So there's a sort of 3-day in-game window, which for our campaign translated to a week and a half window of real life time, where they needed to go on an adventure to do something. And if they did, the children would be, and they did something heroic or something dramatic. They did something that was interesting. They would be able to have Battleborn children. And we didn't keep playing long enough that the people who have Battleborn children would be able to play as the children, but mice, they breed quickly, they have lots of kids, and they also mature fairly quickly. So if the campaign had continued on, you'd be able to play your Battleborn kids. I was going to ask you, what was your experience? Because there were a couple of big conversations about making sure that Chief could go out and take care of Emmy on adventures. Like, what was that experience like? Because it seemed it was just such an interesting experience to watch you guys interact with that system.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I looked at it more from like an in-character perspective. I would think of it as like, oh, Chief's like whatever adventure we're going on, regardless of whether his services are needed or not, he will not let Amy go out on that adventure without him. There were a couple where, they were like, oh, we're just gonna go, to this one area. What was the one with that had the spiders, and she wanted to find the watch hand or something like that? I can't remember what that area was.
The Silent Ruins.
The Silent Ruins.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that one was very much a like really needed people with like a lot of skills because you're going to be in a very foreign place, but you're probably going to be running into a lot of magic potentially and a bunch of historical artifacts or whatever. So you probably want someone with like a lot of skills in like arcana and history and maybe occultism or something like that. And so technically, Chief, this would not typically be the mission I would bring him on, but because Emmy was with children at the time, I was like in character because Emmy was like, I'm going. The lore.
For the lore.
Very, very the lore. I was like, in character, I know Chief would never, even though I had another character that would be more fitting, whose skills would definitely benefit more for the mission, Chief would never let them have Amy go on this mission without him. So very much I ended up having him go, even though he did not do much other than just help them sneak there. So,
which, you kind of hand wave that, oh, I just helped them make sure that they, no predators saw them as we were moving through. That's a big deal. I was going to ask about that. One of the things that is a sort of common complaint might be too strong of a word, but concern in a lot of your D&D style games is either overland travel is boring and most people just ignore the travel part of it, or they say, oh, well, my fighter character or my social skill character, they don't have anything to do in the wilderness, right? The wilderness is all, and just let the ranger handle it. And it's very difficult to sort of engage with it. I was going to ask you, as someone who played mostly as the face of the party style character, did you feel like you could really always contribute when it came to sort of the overland travel stuff? Like, tell me a little bit about that, because the idea of random encounters and being able to get from A to B and navigation and stuff is really important in All Might Die. It is a very big part of the gameplay loop. So as someone who is playing a social, like very heavy social character, how did you feel when it came to the time to kind of go out and make it from A to B?
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially when it comes to trying to get to where you're going and having to deal with the random encounter checks. Like there are certain skills that if you're really good at it, you can very much increase your chances of getting there successfully and with little problems along the way, or at least the things you run into are much more positive than negative. And so that was always that turned into the goal very quickly. Early on, we didn't really think too much of it. It was just like, oh, who do I want to play? And then, I mean, definitely especially midway, by the time we hit the midway point of the campaign, it was like, wait, who are you bringing? Do we have this covered? Do we have this covered? Do we have this covered? So, people that were really good at dungeoneering and nature, they would navigate. The people who had really good skills in perception and was it survival? No, I got those mixed up. Sorry.
Yeah.
Navigating was
navigating
survival.
Yeah, dungeoneering and survival. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then the people who would do, we're calling it lookout now. So lookout was perception and nature. And then for sneak was stealth, of course, and bluff. Well, that is one of Chief's, I want to say only skills, basically, because he did not spec into a lot of skills. That was Chief's, one of his best skills was bluff and diplomacy. And so because he was really good at bluff, he ended up becoming the designated sneak for a long time. But we ended up adding to our party another player who had a brawler, and that brawler really spec highly in stealth. So he was really good at sneaking. And so it kind of became up like, okay, well, who wants to lead sneak and who wants to help the person sneaking? And well, apparently, with Chief having the highest leadership, when you help out somebody, you get to add your leadership to whatever you roll to help them. So with his being so high, he would almost guarantee an advantage for whoever was primary on sneak because his role would be so high because of what you're adding from your leadership. So it was always Chief would just be secondary for sneak. He would help whoever's leading sneak because you're gonna roll twice and take the higher. There is no real question about it because of how high he could roll for it. So I never felt like Chief was useless when it came to our random encounters because he had always had a high bluff skill and could always either be the main sneak if the brawler wasn't there, but a lot of times we would our iconic brawler would be on our big mission, so he would just help him out with his sneak and obviously, let him do even better at it because he can roll at advantage.
Yeah, and in All Mice Die, the sort of what would be the equivalent of the help action in something like a D&D campaign, it's a bit more of a fleshed out system. And if you can sort of make a certain threshold, you can have a little bit of assistance for whoever it is you're helping. But if you can get roll well, or you've got a big bonus, or you've got a good idea, like you can sort of stack it on to where, when the Warlord was high level, using a skill that they were good at, having good leadership, all these sort of things. As they mentioned, like when they were helping the iconic brawler sneak, it was sort of hand wave. It's, do I roll a natural 1? No. Okay. Well, then you have the sort of max benefit. You're empowered to be able to go and do the thing. So they get to roll twice, take the higher, and get a static bonus to their chat.
Even if he rolled a nat 1, he had retainers that would just
they just pile on. Yeah. So because you get to be able to control your posse. Which we had to make a little bit weaker going into campaign 5 and then sort of step back up a little bit because in campaign 4 the cheerleading squad was a little excessive, but I still think it's going to be fun. I still think having retainers and doing things. It's interesting to me. I want to take a minute to ask about retainers. I was going to ask about spellcasting, but you guys use your retainers very differently in the sort of in-person group than the online group. For the online group, their retainers were almost exclusively like, I want to call them lantern men, but like they would, they might hold the torch or whatever, but mostly they were there to bring stuff to the characters. Oh, my character needs a potion. They need a new shield because my shield has been shattered. You need to give me my backup weapon. They kind of treated the retainers as like sort of like inventory helpers. But that wasn't, that wasn't really what you guys did. Well, I guess, for Giles had his one retainer that it was with him at all times to be his axe caddy. So that was true too. So it wasn't that, you never use the retainers like that. But, Chief, by the time we got to the end of the campaign, had 4 retainers with them, I think. Let's see, 2, 4, 7, 2. So yeah, so 4 retainers with them. And I know, we talked a little bit about like there was a little bit of confusion about what they could do in combat stuff, but like what was your feeling about having your own little posse, having your own retainers to come along with it, because they kind of got their own they got their own little personas, right? Because you sort of had different retainers that you knew the names of and did for specific tasks. So yeah, I was gonna ask, what was your interaction with the retainer system?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of like to think it adds to the presence of Chief, where he's just constantly walking around with his like, with his, I want to say lackeys, but they, I think they respect him still. But yeah, like as you get higher level, you can add more retainers, and the Warlord, I feel like probably ends up getting more retainers earlier on than others, because it's influenced by your leadership, how many you can bring with you. Um, and so when he would bring his retainers, it really was like when it came to random encounters, and making those checks, you can have your secondaries that help, when you make those checks, be retainers as well. So like there was always a backup of, okay, we don't have a real player character to help secondary that. I got a retainer. We'll just put him on that, and he'll help with that. And Chief's retainers roll at such a higher degree than others, because he adds his leadership to it. So when a lot of other retainers are rolling at a raw, you're just getting whatever's raw on the dice plus like maybe one or two or something. At the end, Chiefs retainers are rolling what's on the dice plus 9. So it's like that's a bigger bump than some people get from just their skills. So his retainers. I mean, I think at one point a retainer rolled like a 30 or so, it was crazy. It was like the beefiest retainer roll. So that we found that helped a lot with that stuff. He had some that would help him with his skill checks. So I think eventually I tried to spec them into like a specific skill to help out with that, because they have to kind of be trained in a specific skill to be able to help. They can't lead it, I don't think, until they get to a certain amount of training in it, I believe. But they can help you with it at least. And then towards the end, once like I finally kind of understood the rules a little bit, I was like, oh, we can actually use these guys in combat to, instead of Chief being the only one who can kind of enable people with his actions and add his leadership to that, why don't we just have the retainers help bump people up so that they can roll at advantage too? So it's not as like strong as enabler, but where I get to add my leadership to it. But at the very least, we'll give them an extra roll when they're rolling the hit or something, because when you aid, you can give them an advantage on their attack rolls or something. So eventually we started using that system a bit, where okay, all the retainers are in battle, because early on we didn't want to bring them in battle because we didn't want our retainers to constantly get killed, because there are secondaries. We need them to help us get advantage when we're doing our navigation checks and stuff.
And you need to carry the Tombs kit, right? You need the...
Yes, we need somebody to hold the Tombs kit, somebody to hold this torch, somebody to hold Giles' axes. We don't want to lose them. And of course, yes, we care about our little cousins and little brothers and stuff.
The squires.
Of course.
We don't need mechanics to care about our siblings.
No. You're going to be useful in battle, too. You're going to aid us so that everybody gets advantage, not just who Chief is enabling. And that was really helpful, too.
And one of the things that we talked about, very, very different in the two different streams that we've done so far, that I did want to kind of ask you about, because I could go look at my notes, because I know I did take notes specifically on this, but I didn't check before the stream, at least halfway intentionally, on spellcasting. So the Warlord class is a very heavy support class. They do have some spellcasting traits. Everybody can spellcast. Well, everyone except for a very small subset of people. If you do not have a positive mental stat, you cannot spellcast. But almost every character can spellcast, and every class can spellcast. And warlords do get a little bit of extra willpower. They get effectively mana. They get a little bit of extra bump from their class to make them able to be sort of utility casters and things like that. What was your interaction with the spellcasting system? Because I don't remember how much Chief actually cast spells. I know you didn't really do that much in combat, but what was your interaction with the spellcasting system?
Yeah, like I mean, I think our group, our main group for the in person group, we tended to bring a lot of the same characters that were really high level for really big missions. And in that group, we had a druid, which I think you guys will meet at some point. He's our iconic druid.
Mm-hmm.
That was our main spellcaster for our team. He could cast a lot of the high level spells. He had the most willpower of our team, so he would mainly handle the spell casting stuff there. So Chief didn't do that much, and I didn't. It didn't seem like it would do too much. Like it didn't seem like he could help as much with it, considering like the druid's just so much better at it. And if the druid didn't do it, then we had a bard that was still better at it than he was. So like he was like third option. So it's like, how often do you go to your third option? But one thing he could do really well was the magic mouse spell, because that one could be inverted. I can't remember what's the inversion name of magic mouth. What was that called?
Sound swallowing.
Sound swallow. That's what it was. Yes. So he would, we started using that because we had learned, and this is a trick I believe we learned from the iconic wizard when he had started using it. He used sound swallowing because it would help them with their sneak checks, because he could use his arcana and not have to use his stealth or his bluff. He could use his arcana skill for that. And I'm trying to remember what the rules were for sound swallow off the top of my head. I don't have that on my sheet, but I believe when you rolled for it.
So the main thing that sound swallowing did was it muffled sound near you, which the benefit is you're very quiet, but the negative is everyone else, like you can't hear what's happening outside of your little bubble as well. So you sort of a double-edged sword to a certain degree. You counted as sort of one tier lower when it came to seeing and acknowledging threats. But you had Giles a lot of times that was on lookout for dangerous threats, who was going to be pretty good at it even with the down a tier. And then because you are muffled, you would get this static benefit for being able to not be heard. And if you guys encountered something specific and you sort of realize you encountered something, you could burn the rest of the spell to make yourself completely silent for a short period of time, and be able to do it that way. So I think for the most part, your group used the static buff. But then again, it was another one of those things of, could the bard be the caster? Well, yeah. Could the druid be the caster? Yeah. But they want to have their spellcasting for if shit hits the fan. Having your character, having the third string do it, meant that, this utility thing that we can just sort of like work through a little bit, we can have the Warlord do that, because we don't necessarily need them to be spellcasting in combat.
Well, also that spell was very was based in bluff.
Yeah,
like that was the main skill for it. And so Chief was better at bluff than anybody else, so he could do he could get a higher roll out of it.
Yeah. And that is kind of the way with the spellcasting system in All Might Die in general, is if you've got certain skills or you've got certain stats or you have a certain sort of operating procedure that you go through, and especially if magic that year is aligned with what you're wanting to do from it, then you can really, have these spells that might feel a little niche, because it's like, I've got a spell, but it's really only for charisma characters, and our bard isn't really going to use it because she's got some other stuff that she wants to spend her will on, and all these other pieces that kind of lay into it. But you can end up having these seemingly more niche spells be just part of the standard operating procedure. We were talking with Harlan the other day as well, about spells and spellcasting because, you know, everybody who played multiple characters. We talked a little bit about your collection of dead rogues, but you also played a wizard as well, up to fairly high level. What level was your wizard at the end of the campaign? We were trying to figure that out the other day, and I did not remember what level.
Maybe she was 7 or 8. Let me check. I think I heard she. Oh my God, no, she made it to 9. Wow, she was really close.
Yeah, so Scary Terry was the wizard that you played as well. But yeah, like the feeling behind spellcasting was very different. But yeah, having a warlord is there. So hi BST. We did talk a little bit about the warlord abilities already. But if you have any special things that you want to ask about, feel free to do it. The TLDR for warlord abilities is they make everybody better. They make if you're good at what you're doing, the warlord helping you is going to make you great at what you're doing. If you're wielding a weapon, potentially the weapon you want to be wielding is the barbarian or the fighter. You don't want to use the very nice looking sword that she's wearing. So, you know, if BSD has questions about the warlord, specifically, we'll answer those. But one of the other things I did want to talk about is maybe directly or indirectly, your shiny magical sword that you wore wasn't something that you ended up using very much, but Chief did have a pretty good selection of magic items. He was quite well equipped by the end of the campaign. Did you have any magic item or any magic item creation story or anything that you felt was like, oh, this is what I think about when I think of magic items in Chief?
Yeah. I think the sword was hilarious because that was after, I think we had fought Yunder, the Rat King, and we called them the A-Team, which is our in-person group's highest level characters. And they had fought Yunder, the Rat King, and nobody really could use his sword. And everybody else, like, of all the loot that we got off of him, his sword was in there. And yeah, nobody could find like a use for it, or had already gotten something and didn't feel like they should get like multiple things off of him or so. So everyone's just like, what do we do with this freaking sword? And I was like, you know what? I'll take the sword. And I'm just gonna have Chief carry it just for the sheer presence. Just the aura farm, you know. And anybody that sees it, just if they recognize that it's Yunder's sword, well, I'm wearing it, so yeah, we're Chief by proxy take a bit of credit for taking him down.
Look at me.
So
I'm your Rat King now.
Exactly. So that one was funny. I enjoyed having that for a bit. I ended up giving it to House. Oh gosh, I can't remember Jason's house. House name House Ironreed.
Yes.
Ended up giving it to House Ironreed as a trade for something else, and I can't remember at this point. Because he ended up getting a sword saint, and his sword saint would probably actually be able to use it. So I was like, you know what, that seems fair. Someone that'll actually use the sword instead of just using it for posturing. So that's fair. But I think one of my favorite items on Chief was his shawl of pervasive presence, which I like to think of as just like his cape, or if you see in the picture his coat. That I like to think of that as his shawl there. But essentially what it does is if you make a diplomacy or bluff check against a creature whose training is lower than yours, you consider their skill as one rank lower. So it became a constant. Like, my favorite line to Gary was like, am I better than them? You know, every time I had to make a bluff or a diplomacy check, because that's essentially what it is. It's like, if I'm better than them, then they seem like lesser qualified in comparison.
Yeah, though that shawl was, you know, I'd completely forgot about that for a minute, but yeah, the shawl was constantly used, just because, you know, kind of if you already have a step up, it's going to give you a bigger step up. It's going to put you in the clouds, make sure that that critical success is an easier thing to achieve, even though, if you're helping other people, maybe not, the most needed, but was really good. I remember also that, your house had quite a few magic items that were cursed. Did you routinely wear anything that was cursed on Chief? I know you had.
I know which one you're talking about.
Huh?
I know which one you're referring to. You gotta be referring to that jade centering band. I think it was a belt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That we had that was cursed, and for the life of us, because the thing with curses is you don't always know what it does, and it's really hard to figure out what it does until you trigger it. And a lot of curses, well, ironically enough, you don't want to trigger them.
Right.
But it seems like one that would get triggered easily. But I mean, Chief wore this thing for, I don't know, it felt like a dozen adventures before we finally triggered it. And it got triggered so many times in the adventure that it finally triggered in. It was so funny.
Do you remember what it did?
I don't remember what was the exact trigger. I think it was like when he got hit by an AoE. Is that something? Was that it?
Yeah. So if there was an area of an effect, like ability, it would draw the ability to you, right? So you would become an extra target if there was an area of effect. So it just sort of like, was a void that sucked in negative things for its wielder.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, we had fought what was, for our group, the antithesis of everything that we tried to build with our team synergy and complementing each other with our abilities. There was one creature we had to fight, and I don't want to like do any kind of like spoilers for the campaign or anything. I don't know if that is going to transfer over into the new campaign. But he was very much about like, control and, having just very, very like independent use of your abilities, not, using teamwork
personal
to
power,
make each other's abilities better, like trying to shut that stuff down. And he did a very good job at that. So when he did an AoE, and he was doing a lot of them, Chief would be in the middle of it, and he would basically take the attack for his allies, which, in Chief's Heart of Hearts, of course, he would want to do. It still sucks.
Yeah.
Have to roll a defensive save like 2 or 3 times. And of course he's going to fail because of probability. So it was a very, very tough battle that he was in for that one. But yeah, moral of the story, curses, they can be fun. They can be dangerous. There are some that, that one was particularly nasty in that very specific battle. It had never triggered otherwise, never knew what it did in any of their other combats with it, because he'd worn it in other combats, but that one was especially nasty. I think he ended up rolling, I felt like I rolled probably at least 15 or 20 defensive saves, which was like doubled from what he usually would because of all the stuff getting redirected to him.
Yeah, and just for context, we're talking about saves. If you're playing in a game like D&D 5e, the idea of, I make a save against spells and things like that might be the way it works. But in All My Stye, almost all of the rolls are on the player side of things. The person who's running the game rolls almost nothing. Rather than having the GM or the DM, they roll an attack on your character. They'll just say, here's what you have to get to, and then your character has a set of defensive stats on bonuses to your defensive saves, in the same way that you would have like bonuses to attack rolls. So if you attack as the player attacks, the player is rolling to see if they hit, and if the player is being attacked, they roll to see if they can avoid getting hit. So it's kind of always on the player side of things. So she's saying, I'm rolling a ton of these defensive saves. It's because there's a whole bunch of attacks coming her way. And I think, outside of some issues at sort of mid-level, that was the closest that Chief came to dying, was in that combat. I don't think you were really threatened super often. Like, you had a pretty pretty stolid front line for most of them, or unless you can remember another fight. Because I think there was also in the I remember in the Yunder fight, you weren't. Everyone was sort of concerned that Emmy was going to die in the Yunder fight.
Yes.
And then in the fight against the consort, I don't remember Chief being especially threatened. I don't remember Chief being especially threatened in the fight against the Dryad. I think
It was a random one against like a weasel encampment that Chief went down in. Chief and Giles went down. I think we were feeling pretty
cocky.
Our egos were pretty big because we were feeling really good about. I think we were paragons or something at that point, or at least like really high level heroic mice, and we had our A team with us. So but I think we had everyone but Emmy. I feel like, and I think that one really exposed like, oh wow, she makes a difference.
Yeah, we're used to relying on Bard Song to get the job done.
Yes, we did not have Bardic Song, and they had some heavy defenses that were really hard to make the rolls for to be able to attack them. So they were just getting a lot of hits on us, and we could not get a lot of hits on them because they just, I mean, their DCs were so freaking high, and we didn't have that extra little buff that we needed to kind of get us over the edge. So it actually was a lot close, and it was so random. It wasn't even one that like we purposely went out for. It was literally from a random encounter check, and we saw them. We didn't even have to engage, but again, we were feeling, a little high on ourselves. I think a little bit for that one, and we were like, yeah, let's take them out. And wow, it was a close one. Yeah, both Chief and Giles went down on that one. I don't think they were close to death, but he did have to make a mortality check.
Yeah, and in when she says went down, in All Might Die, when your character hits 0 hit points, you don't just immediately die, but neither do you go like unconscious. The way that it works is when you get to 0, you will make a check and see how long you have left to live. If you make the check and you've got good constitution, you've got a good roll, maybe you didn't take a ton of damage, maybe you were just sort of like shaken, you can have a hit point left. You'll go to 1 hit point instead of being in negatives, and anything else you're going to be in negative hit points. And while you're in negative hit points, you have a timer that you are going to die if you do not pull it back at least to 0. And then on some rare instances, if you get just destroyed, you can just straight up die, which gets you that sensation of, okay, either this was a close call, I'm fine. Oh, I'm the screen's blinking red, right? Like we're in the danger zone here. I need to get out of this. This is sort of like the tension is very highly ratcheted up, or that's it. The character is gone. That's all she wrote for this particular character. But you never have an instance where I am dying, so I cannot act. So in All Mice die on their feet. You always have the ability to try to pull yourself out of the fire. Node said in chat that inflated egos are deadly. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, they are. Now, characters do scale faster than the enemies. So the idea of fighting some level 1s at level 1 and the idea of fighting some level 7s at level 7, they mean different things. You're definitely going to be in a better position if you are higher level, just because the nature of the way that you have more things in your toolbox to throw out. You have more things that you can sort of chuck in the way, more barriers for bad luck protection and things like that. But yeah, so I'm gonna look and see. We've only got a couple people in chat. I don't know if anyone else has any other things. Is there anything that you feel like, before we ask, we'll talk a little bit about the campaign this summer, anything you feel like was very like notable for you as a player in the campaign, or from playing the Warlord, or anything that you felt like you really noticed the difference? Again, because you played 2 relatively high level characters. Chief was 11 or 12, and Terry was 9. What was it like kind of having 2 higher level characters? Did you ever feel like, oh man, I'm on Chief, I really wish I had some spells, like I had a bigger toolbox, or being on Terry and be like, oh man, I wish I could help you all, but not what this character does.
Oh yeah. And I loosed that one a bit earlier when we had a mission for that Amy wanted to go on for finding her some magical artifact or whatever, and it was in a place that was going to have again lots of magic and stuff. Not exactly Chief's thing. Like I said, he only cast like one spell, and that was really it. One utility spell at that. So he is not a big magic guy. So he really didn't fit that mission well. I was kind of alluding to that Scary Terry would have fit that mission very well because she was really good at Arcana, Dungeoneering. What do you call it?
History?
Magic device. Yes.
Oh, use magic device.
Yeah, history too. Yeah, use magic device was the one I was trying to think of. Yeah, UMD. She was very good at all of those, and those are all very, very good skills to have when you're in a enchanted place that you don't know anything about, because that'll give you a lot of answers to things when you're really good at that stuff. So yeah, I could very much feel the difference whenever I would switch between them. If there was a mission where, yeah, we felt like, okay, we really need like a lot of utility skills, I'd bring Scary Terry, and then we'd run into something, and it's like, I don't know what this guy's saying, and it's like, crap. Really wish I had Chief right now. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm so used to pulling the being a diplomacy go-to, so it feels weird, but it's like, oh crap, I can't do the diplomacy for you guys. Sorry. Or yeah, then I'd switch back to Chief, and then we'd have some kind of like, oh, is this thing cursed? And it's like, anyone have to use magic device? And it's crickets. It's like crap. Secretary would be very useful here right now. She could do it. So yeah, there was very much that, but I'd say even the bigger contrast is when we would go back to playing lower level characters. Oh my god, it is a night and day difference in the game. We would have high level missions where we're doing some big like county impacting stuff and fight like these big boss level fights, it felt like, and then you go back and the next adventure we go on, we're like, okay, let's bring out our level 3s and have them go follow a treasure map, and just see what they find, and like just try to get them some experience. And it's like, okay, well, let's see if anybody comes back alive. It quickly changes into that. So, whereas the other one, it's like, oh yeah, we're bringing our big guns. We're bringing Chief. We're bringing our brawler. We're bringing Giles. Like, oh, we're bringing Emmett. Yeah, we're gonna get there. No one's gonna see us. We're gonna see them and decide if we want to engage with them or not. If we're tunnel vision, we can tunnel vision it very easily because like we're gonna get there no problem. You come back to the low level group, it's like, okay, well, here's what we hope we can do. We'll see if we can make it there. If we don't run into anything, if something sees us and we don't see it, and it turns into a fight for our lives, and that is the whole mission. Like, very often, low-level adventures turn into that. You cannot have, like, oh, this is our primary objective, because vast majority of the time it gets derailed.
Yeah.
Because you can't really lay out a plan when you're rolling at low levels like that.
and that is I'm curious, right? Did that feel like it was frustrating, or because when I'm hearing you describe it, it sounds like you guys liked it being a nice change of pace, like it felt different every time you kind of played in one of those low level characters, or was it sometimes frustrating that you didn't get to be like, oh, this is the goal, we're gonna get to the mission, and then we can kind of start going. That kind of the idea of, okay, traveling to the mission, if we can get there, then we can figure out what to do. I was just curious, what was your because you getting to play at both low and high level at the same time. It's another one of those pieces of West Marches that's not very common in other campaigns.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, you get a feeling of both, but like especially once you get used to like that kind of dichotomy, like you get used to, like, going into it when like, okay, we're bringing out a level 3. Okay, I've come to terms with it, I've accepted it. Whereas like, I think early on, like after you kind of, like I said, at a certain point, like our egos got a little big because we were really feeling ourselves. Like, okay, I think I'm the danger now. Like, I don't think I'm like as scared of these random encounter checks anymore. Because early on, nobody was high level. We were constantly playing low levels. And I mean, it took months for anybody to get to level 4. It was really tough. It was really dangerous. And then after a certain point, when everybody got high level, like you could have babysitters, and just
Yeah.
have have them help you get where you need to go and power level some of your lower level characters. So you didn't have as many adventures where you were all low levels and we're all just struggling to make it through there. There was obviously we had fun with it, or we would not have persevered for months. But there is a little bit of a okay, several months later, we're so used to like at high level, like we're not as concerned about our random encounter checks. Then you go back to that, and it's like, oh my god, crap! Why is nobody good at anything? Like it's just held back so much. But like that is how we used to play in the early playtest. Is like nobody was good at anything. No, and that is how you went through your adventures. Like, oh, does anybody have dungeoneering? Yeah, but it's only trained. It's like, okay, well, roll and see if we can figure out how to move this door, I guess, or something like that. But it was a lot of that, whereas like high levels, it's not even a question of it. It's like, oh, what skill does it require? Oh yeah, we got it. And that's it. So it's a different mindset. So once you go into it with the right mindset, it's not as frustrating. But I think there was like a little bit in that transition point where you realize like, oh, this is a different game when you're low level versus like this high of level, because like I said, nobody was high level early on, so nobody knew how different it is when you're high level and playing, and then to feel that big shift when you're all low level again. You get kind of used to it. You get, you're sleeping in silk boxers, and it's like, sleeping in this mansion, and then you go back to sleeping in, a cheap apartment. It's like, God. I mean, I did used to live like this, but like,
Yeah.
not used to that anymore. So it's a shock.
Did it feel good to step back into the mansion after you were in the cheap apartment for a while and being like, this is high level play again. I have abilities that were, people can be good at things again.
Oh, certainly, yeah. There's like because it's a different game then, like when you're early level, it's just like, okay, can I get you to level 4? Because that is really the game. Is like, can I get you to survive and make it to level 4? I'm not even giving you a specific mission of like, okay, you need to go out and find this artifact or whatever, because I don't even know if you're gonna survive, dude. Like, I don't know if we can even make it to that destination safely, because we're not good at a lot of things. We're so inexperienced. But when you're higher level, it's not a question of if we're going to get there anymore, because we always get there. And we usually get there with no problem, really, because unless somebody really, really screws up, and a lot of things have to go wrong. Even when somebody screws up, everybody's so good at everything, and our group at least would compliment each other so much, we can make up for somebody's like big screw up. But early on, it doesn't take much of a screw up to just screw everybody. So I think that was a nice change to kind of be like, okay, we're back to higher level. We can actually get stuff done, like specific stuff done. Whereas low level, like, I'm not trying to get specific stuff done. I just want you to survive and make it to a higher level so that you can get to that point where we can get specific stuff done.
Yeah. So Node had to go. Take it easy, Node. Glad you popped in. Say happy birthday to your mom for me. He's going to go take his mom out for a birthday lunch. So
nice.
Definitely can be on board with being a good kid as a new, well, not as a new parent, but I have a new tiny human in the household that I've added to the crew. Can appreciate hoping that later on I'll be pausing in what I'm doing to have one of my kids take me out to lunch later. But I was gonna ask because so I went through my notes a couple months ago. The campaign had ended, the playtest had ended. We were going to be, formulating all this stuff, like compiling all of the lessons from the playtest and really going into it. And I found a document that was like 3 pages long that was just me musing on this situation, because I was trying to figure out whether this was one of a huge problem in the campaign, or if this was a huge boon for the campaign. I was like, even now I look back and I'm like, I think it's a good thing. I think it was a positive experience, but I feel like on the surface level, like it looks really bad. So I wanted to ask sort of your opinion, because I'm pretty certain you were one of the players that day. I have about 3 pages talking about a day that we played, where we played for about an hour. We had like 3.5 hours to play. We played for an hour and then we stopped and we didn't play On My Stye anymore. And the whole group decided we were going to play, what was it? Hue is the name of that game. We were going to play like a board game instead.
Yeah, we played a bunch of board games instead.
Played a bunch of board games instead. So, I have in my notes like, man, this was a really experience that I didn't have at a table where, it wasn't like, oh, we stopped playing the game, we still had time to play, and then also, we never met again, right? Like the campaign has ended. We're not playing it all ever again. But it was just that night. So tell me about that night and your adventure and kind of being able to decide, no, I think we're done with All My Stye for the day.
Yeah, I think I remember that one. I think we were at a ride for that one too.
Yeah.
So I think I think we were gonna go do a treasure map that day, which I don't know if you explain what the treasure maps are.
Yeah, I can explain that for a second. So the idea in a West Marches game is that you have to have a goal in mind for what you want to go do in order to schedule the session. And sometimes you have goals connected with other sort of plot threads that you've got. You can talk to other people in the campaign. You can sort of pull on all these different things to have ideas. But then also either in the very beginning of a campaign where nobody really has an idea of what they're doing, or later on in the campaign where your high level characters all have like ideas of these big things they want to do, but you want to play the low level characters. You look at your sort of the things in the campaign that you're really interested in, and you say, all right, well, none of these things are something that my level 2 character can handle. The mechanism for kind of adding in extra things is the treasure map. And I did talk about that a little bit elsewhere. I don't remember if it was on the other stream or if it was in one of the Mousy Monday videos. But basically, I had initially designed it to be a tavern, sort of the rumor mill sort of stuff. And then after we played a little bit, I decided that I didn't like that vibe. It wasn't quite correct. But the Skulk's hideout, where you could send some of your household out to go and scout the nearby area to build a treasure map, so you can get those extra rumors, right? Hey, we don't have a specific mission. We really do want to play. Let's just go grab a new rumor. Let's explore a new thing. And yeah, you went out on a treasure map one day, and it's not how it was. It did not resolve as you were hoping.
No, yeah, it was one of those of like, okay, yeah, we need an objective. We're at a ride. We don't. We have a little less time when we're at the bar, so we don't try to do anything that's like super big or going to be really time consuming. So we try to do some smaller ones, and that's usually a good opportunity to take some of your lower level characters and get them some experience. So we decided to do a treasure map. I can't remember what level it was, but
level 3.
3? Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, so a little level 3 treasure map. We're like, oh, that shouldn't be too bad. And I feel like it was only a couple encounter checks away.
It was 2 encounter checks away.
Hilarious, even better. I was like, I knew it wasn't too far, because there was an option of one that was decently far that I was like, we cannot bring low levels to that. But yeah, it was not like too far or anything. So I believe we all brought characters that was between like level 3 to 5-ish, something like that.
It was much lower than that.
Was it lower than that?
Yeah, you had. So I like I said, I read the notes on these things, and you only had one character that was heroic. You had one level 5, and everybody else was like 1, 2, and 3.
God, really? I could have swore Silas was like 4 at that point. Yeah, then we were even lower level. Cool. So we were really, so we did not anticipate it being, especially when you do treasure maps and you're doing it with lower levels. Like I said before, there is not a oh, when we get there, we're gonna do this, 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 and this. Like we've got a very specific. No, it's more of like, okay, let's see, if we can make it there, let's try to get some experience. And as they get a little higher level, our chances of success of like you actually making it to your destination are better. So we felt like, okay, we've got a decent chance. I mean, we're not all level 1 where it's like, okay, let's see if we can survive and encounter check. So we felt like, oh, that'll be good. We took one step out of the counties, and the navigation roll, I believe he rolled snake eyes for the encounter check.
Yep.
And which is the lowest you can get, meaning you're probably going to get the worst encounter you can get. And it was to generate some Wraith Lords crossing the bridge. And I believe you had to make a roll for like
Yep.
how many and how high level they were.
Yep.
And you rolled either really well or really bad for us. I can't remember if you have to roll high or low for it to be bad for us. But the way you rolled, I mean, you rolled them to be like a boss level encounter because they were like, what was it, like 8 level 11 Wraith Lords or something like that?
It was
insane.
It was 2d4 minus 1 wraiths, and then you critically failed your navigation, you critically failed the encounter check, and so it ended up resolving it to being Wraith Lords. And when I rolled my 2d4 minus 1, I rolled 2 4s, so it was 7 Wraith Lords, and that was not going to go well.
7 Wraith Lords? Yeah, no. That would have been, I mean, even for the 18, like our highest level characters, it would have been like, okay, we still gotta lock in. This is not like a one shot, everybody. Like that's not cake. So to do that with a level 3 guardian, like,
yep.
And level 3 or sorcerer, it's not gonna happen. So then it was just like, okay, can anybody survive this? Because I mean, no question about it. He was like, okay, are you guys gonna fight or retreat? Gary, what do you think? Yes, we're leaving.
We're leaving.
We can't fight these things. So we were trying to retreat, but like it ended up taking out, I mean, over 50% of the party. And so I think only 2 of us survived enough to run away and make it back to the counties. And the encounter took a bit too, because it wasn't as like simple as like, oh, we're gonna retreat, we leave, and the other ones just immediately got one shot or whatever. Like there was some checks we had to make in that, because we had a guardian that was Claude level 3.
Claude was level 3. Yep.
He was level 3. Yeah, we had a guardian who was actually holding a line very well for his level, especially.
Yeah.
He was able to keep some of the Wraith Lords back and give some of the others time to escape, or at least some of the others another chance to escape. And so that's what ended up taking a bit more time. Obviously, some succumbed to it anyway, and the Guardian Claude, he did not make it, but he did his job, and he held the line long enough to at least get some to be able to make it out. So yeah, that took like I said, it was about an hour of a session, so it wasn't like a whole session worth, but it was enough that we were like, cool, that was an incredibly stressful combat. I think we're good.
We're done for the night.
We were like, they just go to the bar and drink for the night because they had a horrible near-death experience.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, right? Like, you play in a session where everything goes pear-shaped, right? Like nothing goes according to plan. Several people die. You get to the end, you're like, well, we're home, but we really don't want to go back out to play. I was going to ask, like, as the player, I didn't really get a chance to ask back then. As the player, did the idea, right, would be that those sort of low points would be used as sort of like a contrast for the sessions where things went super, super well, where you guys did, ridiculous things, were able to accomplish, 24 encounter checks in one combat as you went around the world, establishing a new beehive, right? Did it have that impact, or did that not feel? Yeah, I was just gonna ask, what did that feel like as a player?
Oh yeah, it stands out. Like I remember it pretty clearly. Like it's one of those. But obviously, it wasn't a deterrent enough for me to like never play again. It's one of those of I call it the highs and lows of Dice Mice. Like you will definitely experience some lows where you're like, man, I that was so freaking rough, man. It's so unlucky. Like oh god, like you're especially if it happens to a character that you end up getting attached to. Fair warning to everyone, be careful. Don't get attached too early.
It's hard not to. And it's one of those things of even when you're higher level, we talked about how when you kind of had a chip on your shoulder to a certain degree at one point where you're like, yeah, no, oh, these are just some weasels, we can take them, and then being like, actually, no, that was really dangerous, that was really rough.
That was tough, yeah.
I wonder, like, the goal at least is for it to feel like a different experience. Like, okay, my higher level character, they're unlikely to be in danger. Like, you're gonna get a little bit attached regardless, but like your high level character, when they are in danger, because you've lost so many low level characters, because you've seen that this can really go bad. Does that end up being fun, right? Does that end up that sort of like tension and anxiety that comes through? Because I know there were a couple sessions where your poor wife, poor Emmy, was very stressed out about the potential of losing the character. Did you ever kind of feel that way on Chief, of like, oh no, if Chief goes, I don't I'm gonna be in a rough place, like, as a person.
Oh, Corinne made that threat many times where she's like, I mean, if Emmy's gone, like, I don't know, I'll have to take a break from this game for a minute. So I totally get that when I got to that point with Chief. When Chief was first trying to get to level 4, I forgot to mention this when you asked if he had ever gotten close. Like, when he was trying to get to level 4, he almost died on that mission. We were in the tombs, and we were fighting, oh my gosh, what were they, like, I don't want to call them zombies or whatever, but, it was like a big skeleton thing or whatever. I mean, there were a lot of things in that tomb that were trying to kill us, and it was a tough battle. And yeah, Chief almost died in that one. And I was really sweating, so I was like, oh my god, this is the closest character I've ever gotten to level 4. Like, really, again? It was tough. And I will say that feeling got multiplied, as he got higher level, because it's like, God, but you're the chosen one. You've made it this far. It starts to, you feel that impact more and more, and you can only get that from having those low of lows, like with the stepping 1 foot out of the counties and like half your party gets wiped, and it's like you realize like how quickly and how easily things can turn. Or you go to that weasel encampment and you think, oh, I mean, come on, we're level 8, we got this. And it was like, okay, I mean, I guess we all survived, but like that was close, and I was sweating, my butt cheeks were clenched. We might need to still be careful, because we are not
invincible.
We are not invincible, no. So I it's good to have those checks and balances in place, and it leads you to have more an investment in your characters as you get further on. You're a little bit more, well, when you don't let your ego get out of control, you get a little bit more careful about some of the decisions you make, and you keep them in mind of like what's gonna not be good for your character surviving when you decide what adventures you're gonna go on. I think Dakota had one where he had a cursed sword that could only get uncursed by going out at night, and we were like, dude, do you know how incredibly risky that is? You are not getting my top shelf character for that. Yep. You can have, I think I got a level 4 I don't really care about. He can go with you. But I'm not going to rush Chief on that just so your sword can get uncursed. Dude, it's got to be way bigger stakes than that for me to risk my darling child. I mean, no family has favorites, but this family has favorites.
Well, I mean, you don't have favorites, but after a certain amount of what is it? What's it like the potluck Fridays? What was it? Funeral Fridays?
Yeah. TGI, like funeral Fridays. Yeah.
After a certain number of funeral Fridays with the family. So BST said in chat, brave Sir Claude bravely wraithed away. Yes. Although one of the interesting things that did come out of it, another one of these ideas, right, of you're sort of being the heroic last stand, actually having a mechanical impact, is the bridge, right, where the encounter took place on, is Brother Shrew's bridge, and the bridge across the river was controlled most of the time by a shrew that was ostensibly an ally of the counties, and Claude did die defending his allies and being in the way and having this sort of heroic last stand moment. But when he did die, his silver shield was left behind by the wraiths, because they didn't care about taking the silver shield. Not only does it hurt them, but they don't really care about the objects. They're there for the life force. And so one of the things that ended up happening, and something that happens a lot in the game, is that when the dramatic moments happen and you can potentially get these literally magical moments, that shield ended up being imbued with some power and ended up getting used later to help protect Emmy. Emmy had that shield at higher level as a way, like that memory of that moment, so that higher level character. And I'm nearly positive, I can't say 100%, I'm nearly positive that was the shield that she had for the consort fight. And one of the few reasons that she did survive was being able to take some blows on that shield instead of taking them to her face. So yeah. Yeah, so even in those dark moments and in the low moments, oftentimes we get good experiences. The highs feel higher, and also the drama, does promote more cool stuff in play. You talked a little bit earlier, like, hey, what we're doing in campaign 6 that joining. Are you joining in campaign 6? And if you are, are you gonna try to do another Warlord? Are you gonna try to sort of branch out to do other stuff? What do you if you are you joining? And if you are joining, do you have any ideas? Do you have any goals? Anything that you want to try to play? Or are you gonna just sort of like, sit back, let the dice fall where they are, and see what happens?
I definitely plan on joining. I don't know if I will be as involved as I was in the last campaign, because doing a lot of side stuff, trying to build an app, But so I'll be a little busy with doing that as well. But I definitely plan on joining, and I mean, in this new campaign, we'll be starting with less classes. So, I mean, I have a feeling I might end up with a Warlord probably, but I don't think I want that to be my main shtick, if you will. Even though I do enjoy the support classes, I'd love to check more of them out. I'm really excited to see some of the other classes we didn't get a chance to unlock in the other playtest. So I think that's kind of what I'll probably be leaning towards looking into, especially exploring the magic system a bit more, because I got to do it a bit with my wizard in this last campaign, but if you look at the magic system between the playtest we played and what it's going to look like in this upcoming campaign, you will see they are very, very different from the sneak peeks I've gotten to see so far. So I am very curious to see how that works. So it'll still be a different experience despite playing a magic based character in the last campaign.
I mean, the magic system is different, but I know you're going to be sad to hear that the ritual hut and the esoterica, it's not the only way to discover spells now. You won't be in the ritual hut anymore.
Oh my god, yeah, Gary's referring to how hard it was to discover spells in this last campaign. That became one of our biggest complaints towards the end of the campaign when we played in the playtest last. It's just like, dude, I mean, we're getting so high level here, and yet we are having a tough time discovering some of these high level spells, and it doesn't make any sense when we have the highest level wizard here. You know, like what do we need to do? So it was really, whereas like with potions, it's like, oh yeah, we can unlock that with just like enough money and time. You know, so it was like, why can't discovering a spell be some kind of similar ease? And I don't know if that's like, is that purposeful, or is that like a, something we've got to work on or anything like that. So, but of course, like I said, it's a play test, so we're gonna have our little road bumps and things we're learning along the way. But yeah, that I very much am looking forward to seeing the new ways you can discover a spell that are hopefully a little bit easier than having to bench your highest level magic user into the ritual hut for several days.
Yeah, we have one of the chatters said that Shields are MVP and Giles is a madman, and that high level potions
Yes.
were a slot machine, and I agree with both of those things. But even though the high level potions were a slot machine, it was still less troublesome than high level spells. Yes, and that is part of the thing that we're really playing into for the next campaign is being able to explore by doing, because the concept, right, of explore by doing with potions, it just worked so much better than explore by doing with the esoterica, with the idea of crafting scrolls to be able to learn new spells versus crafting potions to learn new potions. So one of those systems worked. They seemed on the surface level to, oh, if one of these systems works, the other one should work. And then the answer was no. The potion system worked fine. Like you would occasionally get these really cool moments of like, ooh, I got this mystery potion, got to figure out what it does, and trying to get new ingredients and figure out new things that goes with the potions. That seemed like it was a fun thing, but the spell side of it was never that fun. And it'll be interesting to see in the new season of Magic how the new version, where you get to learn by doing, learn by trying to figure out, okay, I think I know what should go with this combination of stuff. I have an idea of what the effect is, and I have some raw materials. Let's try, right? Where you can say we the esoterica stuff, you could sort of aim it by having an idea of what you wanted to build off of, right? You want to see, oh, we think that there's another shielding spell. Let's make a whole bunch of shield spells and see if we can have a breakthrough. Whereas the new one, it's more like, oh, I think these keywords should line up to be this style of thing. Let's go and explore. Let's go on an adventure and let's try it out and see what happens. I think that'll end up being more fun to play. One last thing I want to sort of hit on a little bit is, we talked a little bit about how that was a problem of campaign 5, the idea that, oh man, we really need to have a better way for exploring spells. But one of the things that was mentioned was the ritual hut. So this is another thing that for West Marches play, or for like big group play, is pretty unique. Like, you don't tend to have this in standard D&D. They're in the D&D 2024 rules for 5th edition D&D. They do have things called bastions, which you can sort of piecemeal build up, that are very slightly similar to the influence system from All My Sty. But I was going to ask you, I don't remember. Do you remember what you spent your influence on? Because you get these sort of like community improvements that your noble family is investing back into the community. They get their stuff. There's certain ones that were very well known. The iconic druid ran the hospital. You had the ritual hut. Do you remember what the other things you spent influence on were?
Did I have the ritual hut? I thought House Tail might have the ritual hut.
Oh, did I didn't? I mean, this is how much I remember. Did Tail? I know you used the ritual hut a lot. Or the scribe.
Discovering based off of esotericas, right?
You had the scribes.
Yeah, I had the inscriptionist.
That's what it was.
I had bought when Scary Terry had finally hit level. I think when she hit level 4, she got expert arcana. I was like, let me go ahead and get his inscriptionist. And boy, did I not know what I was getting myself into with that one. Because the way it works is when you are trying to craft a scroll, if you do it at the inscriptionist hut, you can produce it in half the normal amount of time. However, someone from my house has to be in the hut to enable that, essentially. So I ended up always having to have somebody on standby with some downtime to be able to place in the hut. And I had to remember to post that so and so is in the hut because people would have to ping me and be like, "Hey, is the inscriptionist hut open today?" Yes, I. Hey, do I have to pay for, to get you to come into the inscriptionist hut today? No, I don't. I do not want to deal with that at all. Like, it's just, it is free for my own sanity. It's, so yeah, because House Briarwind had the library, and she, her requirement was just, hey, anything you research here, just let me know like what answers you get about it so we can log it in the library. But you can spend a day of downtime researching there, and you can get answers to some questions that you've had. And so that was her only requirement. And even she kind of like was starting to fall behind on like keeping up with that one requirement she had on her. And I think the what was it, like the where you could go train, it wasn't the dojo, was it? It was the gym.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
There was a dojo as well, but most people were training at the gym to get strong, so they can work together.
Getting strong. And then one of the ones I believe a lot of people started picking up using was like intensive training, which was let you get your class competency a lot earlier than you normally would get. So you could get those extra skill points because you get one free skill point in all of your class skills when you hit a certain level. It brought that level down that you needed it to. So I think it's 7 is when you get it, but if you had intensive training, you could get it at 6, mm-hmm. And like game changer. Very nice. So a lot of people ended up taking that, but I took that one as well, and that was one of mine. I'm trying to think, what did I have anything else? Those were my main ones I used. And I was hoping, I think a lot of us were holding out to see if like some of the higher level influence buildings would drop, but I think you ended up getting a little too busy towards the end there because there's so many things we were unlocking and that had to still be refined a bit. So I think that was a bigger thing.
I had in the playtest document for campaign 5, I had several buildings, several ideas of ways to spend influence for people that had iconic characters, for level 10 characters. The reason that I didn't actually put them into play, the reason that I didn't playtest them, wasn't necessarily that I was overwhelmed, although, I did have a lot of stuff to do because I was running so many sessions and people were crafting magic items, or like not crafting, but creating magic items and cleansing curses and doing all kinds of stuff. It was very active, especially at the end of the campaign. It was because a lot of the stuff was going to take time to tinker with. And I kind of realized this, like, okay, well, we've got icons, we've got a couple of months left of the campaign. They might be able to spend their influence on these buildings, but there's so many things that you guys didn't have access to, even without the sort of only very high level building stuff, only the things that would require level 10, that I was like, I'm not sure if they're even needed, because as the game progressed, there were so many things that were sort of calling for your attention when it came to spending downtime, where it was like, not going on adventure was almost as much work as going on adventure. Okay, well, this person's going to go craft some scrolls. That person's going to go and see if they can find a treasure map. These people are going to go to the gym. And then it's just sort of, and maybe I have a character that's in the hospital because they're recovering. There were all these different things to do, which, I say it like it's a problem that I didn't release the level 10 buildings, but honestly, that way that it worked, and especially the idea of, when you've got a community and when you've got people that are all ostensibly working together, there is this thing of, oh, I spent my resource in order to get this thing. There's that idea of like, oh, I want to kind of get a return on investment. And I was curious how that was going to play out, right? Where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to set requirements. I'm going to set a price for it or a trade for it or whatever. And my assumption is that after people started playing a little bit, that idea would fade away. The idea that like, oh, I need to get something from the community. I think that the fact that you had these community-based benefits and you were all sort of sharing together, I thought that basically it was going to be, too much bookkeeping for people. I wasn't going to tell people they couldn't do it, but I thought I was like, there's probably going to end up being too much bookkeeping, and they're going to just say, yeah, we'll just everybody use everybody's stuff, and if there's anyone who's not playing along, right, anyone who's abusing the system, then we'll deal with it. Which is how it ended up being. Like the arena that let you re-roll your hit points initially had sort of the person who owned the arena had a charge associated with the arena, and then he was like, yeah, that's not worth it. You can just use the arena for free. The hospital. I don't think he ever actually charged for the hospital, but I think the hospital was the only one that, I mean, maybe that was the true American way. The hospital was the only one that actually took gold out of the economy. It was the only one that was an actual cost. But the hospital was one where Jason, House Ironreed, that ran the hospital, they accepted donations. But their donations was not to make the hospital better. It was, they just threw that all into potions. We're going to throw all this stuff into...
It was for potion discoveries. Yeah.
Right. All the money went in, all the injured went into the hospital, and then they paid their money, and all the money went next door to the laboratory to craft all the potions. I think that was the only influence building, or the only influence benefit that sort of kept a cost associated with it. So there were some people that were chatting, so said that spell experimenting expedition sounds interesting. I hope it will be. I think it will be fun to have some keywords and to be able to say, I think I have an idea for what might work for this. Let's try it out. And to be able to sort of compare that to a list and say, okay, well, this is what works. This is what doesn't work. These are sort of the halfway points. I think that'll be a lot of fun, and kind of go from there. And they say, how powerful is this lightning fell? Let's go find a bird to find out. I don't know how effective it's going to be on the bird, because it is, unless you find the bird on the ground somehow. But the Pokemon typing chart tells me that if I need to know how effective the lightning spell is, maybe I do need to find a bird. And then Cisco said some influence buildings were annoying to optimize. The part of the goal of some of my notes from the buildings was finding a way to make it feel like there were some decisions you can make, but also to take the annoying parts out of it. And then others truly felt like community improvements to the community, the type of things without all the fiddly bits. Yeah, I want to have more of those, more hospitals, gyms, arenas, the ones that felt good. I think the Skulks hideout, even though that was sort of a last minute change, the thing that lets you make treasure maps was another really good one that happened. Same with the lab. The lab had a lot of things that were positive for it. I think without the requirement of having one of your characters mandated there at the Ritual Hut to use the Inscriptionist, I think that would make the Inscriptionist a little bit less obnoxious. And then
that was the only tedious part. Yeah,
the name guy, who I don't know if that is Jason, but they say the level 12 potion discoveries for haste. We're throwing money into a fire. Yes.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. And BST says that hospital money going into healthcare research makes sense. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of funny that is exactly how it panned out. And in All My Die, potions, spending time at the hospital or spending time on downtime, if you're not at the hospital, just recovering at home in bed, are the primary ways that you recover hit points. Like you can use potions, but there's no healing spells. There isn't I took a nap and I'm now at full health. Recovery is a slow process, or it is a very expensive process. And there were quite a few times, especially for the physical oriented characters, for like Petrova the barbarian and for Giles as the fighter, where they go out on mission and they're down a handful of hit points because they really want to go and do things, but they don't have the time to stay in bed for another two days in game, another week out of game, to be able to top off to get up to full hit points. So having those higher level potions, like, oh shit, we actually need the hit points now. We need to be able to survive attacks, or we really want to. We are at good health. We think we're not going to need the healing from the potion. We're gonna forego having our potion to get health back, and instead we're going to use our potion to get haste or to get quickness or to make us more dangerous. Was always an interesting thing. Yeah, well, there's no healing spells yet. With enough willpower, anything is possible. Yeah, the
Harlan over there.
I don't know. It's just the name guy in chat. I assume because they are commenting about the potion economy that is Jason, but I don't know everybody's name. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see. And it'll be interesting to see when we were unlocking classes, especially when we're unlocking them quickly. One last little note, and then we'll head off for the day. And I'm probably going to go back to sleep. As a new parent, I will get sleep whenever I can. One last thing that I wanted to ask you about is we did a lot of stuff in the campaign. You played a ton. There was a lot of stuff where we did overland travel. There was some dungeon delving stuff. There was some sort of politicking, going to the squirrels and all that sort of stuff. Did you have a sort of favorite thing? Do you feel like, oh, the time spent in the tombs, that was the peak, or was it the sort of politicking with the squirrels, or was it the exploring strange new places? For you, what was the big draw? And is that going to kind of lean into kind of what you're feeling for this summer for the campaign 6?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because honestly, I think what I enjoyed was the variety of it too. Sometimes we'd be like, oh man, we got feeling bloodthirsty. We got to fight something. I want to fight something big, and then we get through, a combat or like a really big one, or have a couple of, some that are a bit smaller or whatever, and we'd be like combated out, and we're like, can we just, I don't know, explore somewhere like for a little bit and just kind of, check that out, or can we just like, go talk with Pim and Vern or whatever, just have a conversation with some allies or whatever, or set up an embassy, It was really nice to be able to kind of change the game in a little bit, in a way. Like sometimes if you didn't want to get into combat, especially at higher levels when you have a bit more control over your encounters, you could change it up and just be like, no, I mean, we're just going to do this is a lore session right now, and we're going to talk to Rocky for the entire day. And that's our mission, is just to learn more about the lore. And then there's other ones where it's like, God, I miss the tombs. We need to go back to the tombs, and we never got to explore that room. And so then you get in there and you get to, explore, do some dungeon delving and explore that. And then it's kind of got like a little different pace of it, since, there's dungeon turns, and, you got to keep in mind, like, I don't know what else is in here or what I can trigger and all that kind of stuff. And then there's other times where it's like, I just want to fight something, on these encounter checks. I don't care what we run into, we're fighting it. Like, it's just,
we're going to be the problem today.
For trouble, it's, yeah, it's on site. So, and then there was like market days, which, I think you mentioned before, like most people find that stuff boring, is like on a day where you're going to go, literally it's the shopping filler episode. But for us, like, we really look forward to the market day. We learned a lot. We were able to buy a lot, because honestly, a lot of our money, I mean, Dakota was like just asking someone to please take his money because he did not know what to do with it after a certain point. Um, because after doing so many big missions, you end up with a lot of gold in your house, but like, where do I spend it? If you're not the type to build scrolls, like he had a brawler, he's not casting spells, and he's not really drinking a lot of potions, not enough to warrant spending thousands upon thousands of gold on. So what am I spending all this gold on? Well, at the market we can buy magic items. You don't have to wait until like one gets created or you loot it off of somebody's corpse and hope it's something good. So we really look forward to those kinds of sessions, and also you learned a bit more about the lore because at the market you meet other kinds of cultures there, and you would glean a little bit just from meeting them and doing trades with them. So that was fun too. So I just love the variety of it. So I can't even say there's a particular favorite because there were points where it's like I got tired of each one at a certain point, but it was okay because you could change it up in the next session and it'd be refreshing all over again. you know. Even when it's like, oh, it's high level sessions, everything's easy. You go back to a level one, and it's like, okay, you know what? I gotta lock in again. So even that was still refreshing. So yeah, it's hard to pick a favorite. I enjoyed several different versions of whatever kind of missions we went on.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear, because that is also my experience with West March's play. It's one of the things that I struggle sometimes playing in campaigns where I don't have a stable of characters is that I feel at a certain point, not that it's the fault of any one particular group, but it's like if you get to high level, it's like, man, I kind of miss being the rat catcher. I'd really like to play with this group of people. I really like the people I'm playing with, and I like the world, and I like what we're doing. I wanna be in a different mode. Or we're 4 sessions into a 7-session arc of this dungeon or whatever. I'm a little dungeoned out, but I can't say that to the other players, right? Because I know we've probably still got a couple of sessions left in the dungeon. Where that sort of freedom to be able to just say, I'm not going to go do the dungeon delve today. I'd rather go do that. And being able to just say, hey, not only, hey, us as a group, let's go do something else, but if you see, hey, this session's going to be a dungeon delve session, you just not go. You can go, you stay home and watch some anime or do something else. You can spend your time doing other things and not feel like you're letting your friends down because you didn't show up that day. So the last thing I will say, though, is I hope that at least the dungeon delving stuff was something that you fondly remember, sometimes because I'm just started doing like the true prep for the campaign this summer, and I think that the dungeon that I'm building with Node from last season, from the iconic Revenant, who's going to be running some games when the campaigns get started again, I think this dungeon is the coolest dungeon that I've ever made. I am so excited to kind of set the players loose on it and be like, okay, here's this thing. What can you find out? What can you figure out? What's the world going to look like on the other side? And the idea of just being able to say, all right, I don't have a goal. I don't have a plot. I don't know what's going to happen here. Present it to the players, and then seeing what they tinker with and seeing with, oh, do you feel like making this a dungeon delve? Do you feel like just getting in there and getting loot? Are you guys going to be fighting today? Are you sneaking around, being really careful today? The sort of the winds changing and being able to experience all those different things makes me really look forward to running for everybody, and keeping it fresh and keeping it interesting, even if we're playing pretty frequently. So thanks for having the time set aside to be able to sit and chat with me, Tisha. Do really, really appreciate it. And for everybody in chat, thank you for joining in and sitting in and having a conversation with me on this pleasant Sunday afternoon. And if you're listening in after the fact, hopefully there will be a link down below if the Kickstarter is live, kind of aiming you there for the quick start stuff that's going to be coming this summer. And if the campaign is running, please come and join us. Come in and see what the game is like, because For all of the positives of this style of game, I've found, and I don't know if this is true for you as well, Tisha, it's really hard to explain why this game is so fun. Why the idea of being able to play high level and low level and like having this strange mix of stuff, and the idea of having characters that you really get attached to and then you can't get attached to, and all these different things, and having this community. It is a difficult thing to explain, but for those that are willing to give it a try, I think that you'll end up finding that it is pretty fun.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. It's really hard to describe like what it is that really captures me about the game that made me keep coming back despite my sister flaking out sessions ago, early on. So yeah, if someone can find a way to put it in words, I would love to hear it, because yeah, I mean, we just had 2-hour conversation about all the different things we've done in this, and barely scratched the surface of like the different adventures we've gone on. And then that's just from my perspective. There were so many I was not a part of that all sound really interesting, or ones that sound like really brutal. Glad I missed that one. So, and other ones that sound like, God, that sounds so cool. I wish I would have watched it. I think Gary ended up recording a couple of their sessions, because It's like, God, I really wish I could see what happened on that one. So it's really addicting.
Yeah, glad you didn't go on the first Gem Fiend raid, but I am really curious. Like, I'm glad I wasn't there because almost everyone died, but I am still curious because I'm invested, right? Because I have a reason to care. And that's one of the difficult things about playing any tabletop game, playing D&D and stuff, is you have these really cool experiences, and then when you try to explain it to somebody else, if they're not invested, if they're not in the world already, not just in the tabletop gaming sphere, but like if they don't have investment in your world, it's really hard to make those stories interesting. Like they're interesting to you telling them, but you don't have that investment. But if you've got a big community where like they have a reason to care about the story that you're telling because it might affect them and what they've got going on, it's just a different feel. So, all right, well, I'll head off. Thanks again for talking to me, and I will see you later. Take it easy, everyone.
Yes, thanks for having me.